What is going on, my friends, and welcome back to another video on the channel. Well, I know it may look a little bit different, I may look a little skinny or a little bit sickly, and of course that is because I do have my MMA fight coming up just this weekend. Of course, if you do go to b2fs.com and scroll down a bit, you can see I will be fighting on April 9th in the Monroe Civic Center Arena here in Louisiana. So if you are coming, check it out. If you are coming, watch the fight, do please, message me. Let me know, hey, I'll be there so I can see you and we can maybe take a picture or do whatever, but you can get your tickets here or you can purchase the pay-per-view here. Either way, please do put my name in the note box so I do get credit for it. But I do have a fight again in 3 days, so I'm not feeling the best. I'm cutting weight, but I did want to get behind the screen one more time, get behind the camera one more time before I head out tomorrow. But in any other news, we are going to be going over Solana today. We're going to be taking a quick look at what's going on with the price now that we are getting a confirmed pullback, and that is a very important pullback in my opinion. And I think although we did just fail a pretty big thing recently, I think that there is still potential for us to see strong growth dependent on a few certain aspects coming to fruition, in which we will all cover today. Okay. So looking at Solana, of course, what we knew is that we were in a descending wedge that did have the potential for us to see a stronger breakout towards the upside. But what we know is that through uptrends, if we enter into a descending wedge and break out to the downside, that is usually a sign that we're looking at more of a larger correction, right? That is usually the sign that, okay, maybe this is going to be a little bit more extreme than, one of these smaller corrections of this nature back here, right? Because usually when we enter into these little descending channels, we will break out towards upside, back test them, and continue. But when we roll through one towards the downside, that is usually a sign like, okay, this may be like 10-15% fall, right? So with Solana being down 7%, really no surprise there. Now, looking at Solana though, we of course do have a key level of support right here at $117.5, and it does actually seem as if it's holding up decently well. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is add a contingency to this video and say that if we bounce off 117 and re-enter back above this descending level of support, now flip this to resistance, kind of discard this video. Don't worry too much about what this video consists of, because that will kind of start to say, well, very likely at that point, that was a fake out to the downside. That might be followed by a breakout to the upside. And then that kind of changes things up a bit. And I'll make another video before I leave tomorrow. Okay. But let's talk about what we are saying right now if that doesn't happen. I'm going to tell you guys my exact game plan. I'm actually going to tell you guys exactly how I plan on purchasing this thing even more going forward over the next couple of days here. So looking at Solana, there's a couple things to focus on. The first one is, of course, what was the title of this video about when I said it failed an important move? What it failed at this point was the holding above the 20-week simple moving average. What we can see is that the price of Solana came back up, boom, hit this level of resistance, and is currently rolling to the downside. But the thing about it is we did close above it. We closed above it and we failed to hold above it. And this is actually something that Solana doesn't do very often. If we look at previous interactions here, one thing you can see is that generally speaking, when we get back above it, we stay above it. As you can see right here, we barely wicked below it at one point, but we realistically never came back down under it. And if you look at previous examples back here, when we got rejected, this rejection led to a pretty strong correction to the downside that looked like a fall of over, let's go ahead and give this about 50%. I don't think the market is in a position to do something of this nature, but we always have to be careful, right? We always have to be mindful of what happens here. Now, this is a very new crypto in terms of overall macro-based perspective. So of course, there are things that are just going to happen that we can't base off of history. But it is important to note that usually speaking, when we get these closings above it, as we did here, we stay above it. And we did not do so. We failed to do so at this point. So looking at it now, from a daily perspective, we need to start to talk about what's next. Well, personally speaking, you guys know that I did my first purchase on Solana at $110, as I did announce to my Patreon members and then to you guys the next day. And I told you guys that I had a 3-step strategy on how I was going to be purchasing Solana. I told you guys I would be purchasing Solana as follows. The first time I would purchase Solana is that if we got above $110, because that would be us clearing this macro high right here. If we got above the macro high, that would be purchase number 1. I said purchase number 2 would be at the eventual pullback, or if it gets back above $135 and is able to hold above it. I said if we get back above 135, we will flip this previous level of support into a continuation of support, very likely, and continue to the top side. At that point, I would want to accumulate again in dollar cost average on the way up. But I said, if we fail to get back above 135 and hold it, as we have now, I will be buying on the next two key levels of support because I am under the belief that we will set the higher low, whether it be here or whether it even be down here, and then from there continue towards the top side, in which my third accumulation would happen. I plan on accumulating throughout this whole move because, again, I am under the belief that Solana is now flipped bullish. That's my belief, okay? So looking at this thing, what I need to do at that point is say, okay, where are my two key levels of support that I am willing to purchase at? Well, what I'm thinking at this point is I will be doing some buying actually just about right now. I'm going to do a little bit of accumulating on Solana as we now come to backtest this previous level of resistance. One thing you can see is that Solana has a history of clearing these key levels of macro resistance and coming back down to backtest them. It has a pretty strong tendency to do so, right? I mean, even if we look up here, we had this high. We broke it, we came back, we backtested this area, then we continue towards the top side. And if you look at the history of Solana, it is something that it will do quite often. Let's look for another example here. Now we have these huge runs, of course, and those are always great, but even look at something like this. We saw this bounce, we have the high. And this isn't a perfectly straight line, but if I go ahead and draw the straight line, you can see we break it, we continue up, but we come all the way back down. We backtest that macro regional high before eventually continuing towards the top side. And I think that we could be in a position to do something similar. So what I'm going to be doing is off of this $110 buy, I'm actually going to be doing a very small purchase. Whenever I purchase at support levels, I don't buy a lot. I just buy a little bit just in case, right? It's kind of like a just in case type of thing. But I will be doing a little bit of purchasing here at $117 to $118. That's support level number one. What I'm then going to go ahead and say is that if the price does continue to fall from that point forward, I will actually be purchasing on the bottom side Fibonacci, which is going to look somewhere around this $99 to $89. If I can catch Solana under $100 at any given point, I will be willing to purchase it, and I will be willing to bet that it holds, okay? I don't think we're going to come back under $77 and start to set lower lows, and I am willing to take that risk. I think the market is now flipped bullish, and so I'm willing to be accumulating, and if I'm wrong, and I will admit that. But considering the fact that we are so high, so far from the all-time high, I think it's a matter of time before the bottom is put in, and I do believe it has been put in, okay? So my overall game plan is I'm going to be doing a little bit of buying like right now, as soon as this video ends, right here at this previous level of resistance, because there is the chance that we do find this previous level support and continue to the top side. One thing we can see is that, look, we go out and we look at our daily Bollinger Bands. Our 20-day simple moving average is just about $8 below us now, right? I mean, we're sitting very close to it. So are we coming back to backtest it and then continue to the top side? Very possibly so. We have seen that level hold up before, right? In which we will go up, come back down to this level, go up, come back down to this level, go up, come back down to this level. And of course we did fail it here, but this was at an all-time high. You can see the relative level of confluence at that 20 simple moving average. So considering the fact that we're just right back above that level and mixed in with the fact that we do have this key level of macro resistance here, yeah, I would be willing to bet that we could flip this into support and continue to the top side. So again, support level number one for my purchase will be right around this $117 level. And the reason I am so strong on the idea that we will see this bounce of support for Solana, not only is it because I think that Bitcoin is going to find some support as well. I think Bitcoin is coming back down to put in the higher low somewhere around here, especially if we look at something like the 20-week, the 20-week simple moving average. You can see we are back testing it right now. And overall, Bitcoin does still just seem pretty bullish to me. I think we're coming back to back test these previous highs, and I think 42,000, 43,000 will hold as support just because of the bullishness in the market right now. But on top of all that, if we look at some of our indicators, we are starting to get early signs of bullish divergence. When you put it into perspective of these lows, right, the lows that we put in on the charts, the lows that we put in here, we have very clearly seen the higher lows still at this point. We are still above 95 cents, or $95, my apologies. But when you put that into perspective with the RSI, we have set the lower low already, and that just says that the RSI is resetting faster than the price does. And generally what that means is that we will see bullish divergence play out, in which the bears get exhausted much sooner than the bears have the, the capability to push the price down to lower lows. Okay, even if we look at something like our weekly MACD, we are still in a position in which we very possibly could see this bull cross happening within the next couple weeks, just with one more bounce here. And so for all of those reasons and us moving into this bullish territory, I am still very confident that we can see the price of Solana continue towards the top side, and that for that reason I will be purchasing on these support establishments. Okay, once this video does end, I will be buying a little bit here. We continue towards the bottom side. I'm looking for $100 to $90. That little key area right there, boom, I will be looking to accumulate. I will be looking to purchase. Now, one thing we have to consider is that this previous level of resistance and support is sitting right here as well, so that it only gives me another incentive on top of the Fibonacci's to say that this level very possibly could hold a support, and it could be a great place to be accumulating if we are going to see that bounce of this nature, to be buying here, to be buying here, and then to eventually be buying on the breakout again, to see a great accumulation before Solana's price does continue to what I believe could be $220 to even $260. So that's my game plan. That's what I think is going to happen. Of course, I don't have a crystal ball and I can never know, but I am under the belief that we will set the higher low. I do think we are now in an uptrend, and I think if we are capable of catching some of these, decent discounts as these things do reset, similar to here, right? If we could have caught it somewhere in here before eventually continuing, we can see some great short to midterm gains, and that is a position that I'm trying to put myself in. So you guys do understand I'm just a random dude behind the computer, so please just don't follow this exactly how I do it. I am going to make mistakes. I am going to mess up, and that is something I have accepted. But if you are not in that position, and if you are not, fully capable of understanding these different strategies, please don't just trade and copy exactly what I do. It does get risky, and I don't, want you to think that I'm an expert, because that is not the case, okay? But with that said, that's my opinion, and that's what I think is going to happen. This might be the last video that I have until Monday, until after my fight, and if that is the case, I hope you guys do have an absolutely fantastic weekend, and I can't wait to see you all next time. Peace.